How could I marry a man whose soul still ached for another? I searched for the courage to confront him, but every time I opened my mouth, my voice failed me. The wedding was days away. The entire city of Lagos was abuzz, social media already exploding with headlines. Christian Khalifa finally taken. Most eligible bachelor off the market. And me? I was falling apart inside. The final straw came the night I found the engagement ring. My ring tucked in its velvet box on my vanity. A flawless 4-carat emerald-cut diamond set in platinum Christian's personal design. A symbol of our forever. I stared at it under the soft glow of the chandelier. My heart broke again, sharp and unrelenting. And in that moment, a single desperate thought consumed me. I have to get out. But how? The next morning, I made my choice. I slipped into a simple linen dress and flat sandals. No makeup, no jewelry, just the ring clutched in my palm. I drove to Daisy's art studio in Ikoyi, an address I'd found buried in an old magazine profile. She looked surprised when she opened the door. Her expression softened when she saw my tear-streaked face. "I can't marry him," I whispered. My voice was shaking. "But I can't stop this wedding either. Not when it's this big. If you still love him, here." I pressed the ring into her stunned hands. "I'm setting him free." Before she could speak, I turned and fled. It wasn't the smartest plan. It wasn't even a plan at all. But I was drowning, and giving her the ring felt like my only way to escape this unbearable lie. Hours later, I was gone. I packed a small suitcase, booked a private driver in secret, changed SIM cards, blocked Christian's number. By nightfall, I was on a private flight to Abuja. A friend of my late father owned a discreet luxury apartment in Maitama, far away from the glittering world of Lagos high society. I barely breathed until I stepped into that quiet, sun-drenched apartment. But peace was short-lived. The next morning, my phone buzzed with frantic texts from my cousin Emeka. "Scarlett, what have you done? Christian is looking for you. He went to Daisy's house. He saw the ring. Everyone is panicking. He's out of his mind." My heart seized. The fragile world I tried to escape had begun to shatter. Christian had found out. The unraveling before the wedding. The air inside my apartment in Banana Island was suffocating, not because of the heat, but because of the storm swelling inside my chest. I stood barefoot in the middle of my elegant white living room, holding my wedding invitation in trembling hands. A soft blush of gold ink scrawled across fine ivory paper. Christian Khalifa Scarlett. Okanwa, Saturday, 16th of November. The Grand Orchid, Victoria Island. Reception to follow. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, marrying the man every woman in Lagos dreamed of. The billionaire heir to Khalifa Holdings. The one who made even the coldest socialites melt with a single glance. And yet, a single moment had broken the perfect picture I had painted in my mind. I had seen him with her. With Daisy, it wasn't planned. I had gone to the Lagos Polo Club unannounced, wanting to surprise him after my bridal dress fitting. I wasn't even supposed to be there. But through the open glass doors of the private lounge, I saw them. Christian was leaning in close, a low smile tugging at his lips. His dark eyes, usually sharp and unreadable, were soft, melting like they had never done for me. And Daisy, poised, breathtaking in a silk champagne dress, tilted her head back as she laughed, her fingers brushing his wrist. The intimacy in the gesture burned my eyes. I had heard whispers about her before. The one woman who had left him shattered 5 years ago. The one whose name was never spoken in front of him. And now, 2 weeks before our wedding, there she was. And so was he, smiling at her like she still held his heart. I barely made it back to my car before the sobs broke free. The following days passed in a blur. Christian came home to my place at night, holding me, kissing me, whispering plans about our future. But all I could see when I closed my eyes was Daisy's reflection in his gaze. How could I marry a man whose soul still ached for another? I searched for the courage to confront him, but every time I opened my mouth, my voice failed me. The wedding was days away. The entire city of Lagos was abuzz, social media already exploding with headlines. Christian Khalifa finally taken. Most eligible bachelor off the market. And me? I was falling apart inside. The final straw came the night I found the engagement ring. My ring tucked in its velvet box on my vanity. A flawless 4-carat emerald-cut diamond set in platinum Christian's personal design. A symbol of our forever. I stared at it under the soft glow of the chandelier. My heart broke again, sharp and unrelenting. And in that moment, a single desperate thought consumed me. I have to get out. But how? The next morning, I made my choice. I slipped into a simple linen dress and flat sandals. No makeup, no jewelry, just the ring clutched in my palm. I drove to Daisy's art studio in Ikoyi, an address I'd found buried in an old magazine profile. She looked surprised when she opened the door. Her expression softened when she saw my tear-streaked face. "I can't marry him," I whispered. My voice was shaking. "But I can't stop this wedding either. Not when it's this big. If you still love him, here." I pressed the ring into her stunned hands. "I'm setting him free." Before she could speak, I turned and fled. It wasn't the smartest plan. It wasn't even a plan at all. But I was drowning, and giving her the ring felt like my only way to escape this unbearable lie. Hours later, I was gone. I packed a small suitcase, booked a private driver in secret, changed SIM cards, blocked Christian's number. By nightfall, I was on a private flight to Abuja. A friend of my late father owned a discreet luxury apartment in Maitama, far away from the glittering world of Lagos high society. I barely breathed until I stepped into that quiet, sun-drenched apartment. But peace was short-lived. The next morning, my phone buzzed with frantic texts from my cousin Emeka. "Scarlett, what have you done? Christian is looking for you. He went to Daisy's house. He saw the ring. Everyone is panicking. He's out of his mind." My heart seized. The fragile world I tried to escape had begun to shatter. Christian had found out. And the man who had once been calm and calculated was now dangerous in his obsession, determined to hunt me down and drag me back into the life I'd run from. The hunt begins. Christian Khalifa stood alone in the center of his penthouse, high above the glittering Lagos skyline. The walls seemed to pulse with silence. In his right hand, the engagement ring gleamed coldly, the same ring he had designed for Scarlett Okanwa, the ring he had found that afternoon on Daisy's finger. He had arrived at Daisy's studio on impulse. One of his security men had quietly reported Scarlett's movements that she had visited Daisy 2 mornings ago. At first, Christian dismissed it as harmless, until he walked in and saw the ring, on Daisy's hand, not Scarlett's. "What the hell is this?" he had asked, voice low, trembling. Daisy had faltered. "Christian, she came to me. I didn't ask for it." But the blood pounding in his ears drowned out her excuses. Scarlett was gone. No calls, no messages, no trace. Now in the penthouse, Christian's mind spun wildly. What had she done? Why would she run? He threw the velvet ring box across the room with a snarl. It crashed against the marble fireplace, scattering shards across the floor. Without a second thought, he grabbed his phone. Speed dial. "Kenji," he barked. "I need you at the house, now!" Kenji Okafor Lagos's most ruthless private investigator. A man who made problems disappear for Nigeria's elite. 10 minutes later, Kenji arrived tall, sharp-suited, eyes cold as steel. Christian barely waited for him to sit. "She's missing." Kenji blinked. "Scarlett?" "Yes." Christian ran a hand through his dark hair. "She left the damn ring with Daisy. She's blocked me. Vanished." A pause. Then Kenji asked quietly, "Are you sure she didn't call off the wedding?" "She wouldn't do this." Christian slammed a fist on the table. "Not like this. Something's wrong." Kenji's gaze narrowed. "All right, I'll find her. Where do you want me to start?" "Everywhere." Christian snapped. Every corner of Lagos, airports, private terminals, hotels. I want surveillance on her cousin Amaka, on everyone she knows. He wasn't finished. Within the next hour, Christian had called every fixer and investigator in his network. 3 more agencies, 2 cybersecurity firms. Money was no object. He wired obscene sums into their accounts with a single command. Find her. As the night dragged on, the penthouse turned into a war room. Christian paced like a caged animal, dark circles under his eyes. His aides and guards watched warily, none dared speak. No one had ever seen Christian Khalifa like this, not even after the brutal breakup with Daisy years ago. But this was something else. Because for the first time in his life, something terrified him. The thought of losing Scarlett. He could barely breathe around it. By dawn, reports trickled in. Nothing at the major airports. No sign at hotels in Lagos. Cousin Amaka hasn't left Ikoyi. Christian's fury deepened. Widen the search, he growled. Check Abuja. Private flights. Look into her father's old contacts. He sat in the dim light, knuckles white. His mind flashed with every memory of Scarlett, her laughter, her fire, her stubborn heart. How could she vanish so easily? And why? Why had she done this? He could still see her standing in her silk robe just nights ago, curled in his arms, whispering, I love you, Christian. Lies. Or was it him? Had he driven her away? Was it because of Daisy? The questions gnawed at him until madness hovered at the edge of his sanity. By mid-morning, Kenji returned with a thin file. We traced her bank card, he said quietly. Used once. Airport lounge, private terminal. Christian's pulse jumped. Destination? Abuja. Christian rose, eyes blazing. Prepare the jet, he said coldly. We leave in an hour. As the engines of his private Gulfstream roared to life, Christian's heart thudded with grim resolve. Scarlett might have thought she could disappear into Abuja. She was wrong. And when he found her, because he would find her, he would make damn sure she never tried to leave him again. Hiding in Abuja, the penthouse apartment in Maitama was nothing like home, but for now, it was all I had. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the morning light spill across the polished marble floors. The view of Abuja's skyline shimmered beyond the glass, distant, unfamiliar. But even here, miles away from Lagos, my heart was still racing. I kept replaying the look on Daisy's face when I'd handed her the ring. The confusion. The pity. What had I done? I gripped my phone, checking it for the 100th time. No calls, no texts. Of course not. I had blocked Christian Khalifa before I boarded the jet. But that didn't stop the dread curling in my stomach. Had he found out yet? Had he seen the ring? Had the storm begun? I paced the room, clutching my robe tighter around me. I hadn't eaten. Sleep had been a luxury I couldn't afford. I was running, but from what, from whom, I wasn't sure anymore. The door buzzed. I froze. But it was only Mrs. Adana, the apartment caretaker, an old friend of my father. She had agreed to let me stay, no questions asked. Madam Scarlett, she said softly, handing me a basket of food. Please eat. You need strength. I forced a smile. Thank you. But my appetite was gone. Later that afternoon, I pulled the curtains tight and lay on the sofa, mind spinning. Could I really disappear? Could I stay hidden from Christian and the entire Lagos society? My father had taught me well about the power of men like the Christian Khalifa, men who never lost what was theirs. And for reasons I couldn't explain, deep inside I knew. He wouldn't let me go so easily. By the next day, I had a routine. Wake early, stay indoors, use burner phones, pay cash for everything. No social media, no calls to Amaka, no contact with anyone in Lagos. The fear of being traced haunted me. I even stopped wearing perfume, some ridiculous thought that it might somehow lead him here. But isolation was a different kind of prison. At night, alone in that beautiful apartment, memories flooded me. How Christian used to pull me into his lap after long days. How his voice would soften when he whispered my name. The way his arms felt warm, protective, dangerous. I pressed my face into the pillow, ashamed of the ache inside me. Why did I miss him? After what I had seen, after the way he looked at Daisy, why was there still a part of me that wanted to believe? On the fourth morning, my nerves cracked. I dialed Amaka on the burner phone. Oh, she answered on the first ring. "Scarlett, where are you? What have you done? Christian is—" I cut her off. "Please, Amaka, don't tell me anything. I just needed to hear your voice." There was a long silence. Then she whispered, "Scarlett, he's going crazy." My breath caught. "He's called every private investigator in Lagos. He's searching everywhere. He even threatened my boss to make me talk." Tears stung my eyes. "What have I done?" I whispered. That afternoon, I couldn't sit still. I packed a small overnight bag and moved to a serviced apartment in Asokoro, changing locations to stay ahead. I had left Lagos to free myself. But now, freedom felt like fear. Meanwhile, back in Lagos, Christian sat in his jet, eyes burning. "Pilot, ETA?" he asked. 45 minutes to Abuja, sir." Christian's jaw tightened. He hadn't slept in days. His voice had turned hoarse from constant calls, orders, and demands. Kenji slid into the seat across from him. "We've got movement," he said quietly. "Cash withdrawals from Mitama. No name on the apartment, but the property belongs to an old associate of her father." Christian's heart slammed against his ribs. "She's there," he breathed. Kenji nodded. "It's likely." Christian leaned back, fury and longing warring in his chest. What had she done? Why had she run? One thought kept burning through his mind. When I find her, she'll never run from me again. What she meant to him. The jet touched down at Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport under the veil of twilight. As the plane taxied, Christian Khalifa sat alone in the cabin's leather chair, his fists clenched, chest tight. For days he hadn't slept, hadn't eaten more than scraps. But none of that compared to the hollow ache inside him, now the raw, unrelenting fear that he had lost her. Not since Daisy. Not since that betrayal 5 years ago, when he had come home to find his best friend, his blood brother, in bed with the woman he loved. He could still remember it in brutal detail. Daisy's tears, her lies, the wreckage of his trust left in that room. That night, Christian had sworn, never again. Never again would he open his heart. Never again would he believe in love. And for years he hadn't. Women had come and gone, models, heiresses, socialites. They all blurred into one. He gave them nothing. They wanted his name, his wealth, but none could reach him. Until her. Until Scarlett Okunwa. He had first met her 2 years ago at a Khalifa Holdings dinner, an event he hadn't even wanted to attend. Scarlett had walked in quietly on the arm of her father, Chief Okunwa, a longtime business associate of Christian's late father. No diamonds, no flashing cameras, just a soft, understated beauty in an emerald silk gown. She had carried herself with the kind of grace that turned heads not because of what she wore, but because of who she was. A brilliant corporate lawyer, well-respected in the legal world, with no need for his money, no interest in the spotlight. When their eyes first met across the room, Christian had felt something, a pull, a whisper, deep inside. In the months that followed, they had begun to see each other. It had started as cautious friendship, late-night coffees after meetings, long walks in Ikoyi Gardens. Scarlett was unlike anyone he'd known. She was calm, soft-spoken, never chasing after his wealth, never shrinking in his presence. Every man's dream, but somehow still untouched by the greed of Lagos society. Slowly, something inside him had thawed. He began to trust again. He began to feel again. And when he finally realized he wanted her not as a trophy, not as a possession, but as his wife, his partner, the only woman he could imagine by his side for the rest of his life, it had terrified him. But he had proposed anyway, designing the ring himself. And now she was gone. As the jet rolled to a stop, Christian pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes. His throat tightened. Breathing became impossible. A single broken sound escaped him, and then another. The cabin lights dimmed, and for the first time in years, for the first time since Daisy had shattered him, Christian Khalifa cried. Not the silent, controlled tears of a man in power, but deep, agonizing sobs that racked his chest. Because this wasn't about pride, or reputation, or possession. It was about her, Scarlett, the only woman he had ever loved without fear. And the knowledge that he might have driven her away, that he might lose her forever, broke something in him that no amount of wealth could mend. When he finally looked up, his cheeks were wet, his eyes red. But his resolve had hardened. He would find her. And when he did, he would tell her the truth about everything, even if it meant falling to his knees. By the time Christian stepped off the plane, Kenji was waiting on the tarmac. We have a lead, Kenji said quickly. She switched apartments. She's in Asokoro now. Christian's voice was hoarse. Take me there. The SUV sped through the dark streets of Abuja. Every second that passed felt like a lifetime. As the lights of Asokoro came into view, Christian clenched the seatbelt tight. Hold on, Scarlett, he thought. I'm coming for you. Worlds about to collide. The streets of Asokoro were quiet that night. Scarlett sat curled on the corner of the sofa in the service department, the soft hum of the city below barely reaching her ears. But inside her chest, her heart was thundering. Something wasn't right. For days now, the fear had been growing not from what she saw, but from what she felt, a weight in the air. A strange tension she couldn't shake. It was as if the very walls were whispering, "He's coming." She rose and began pacing, arms wrapped around herself. What had she done? What had she started? It was supposed to have been simple. Leave the ring. Disappear. Free them both from the lie their wedding had become. But now, even here miles from Lagos, hiding under a false name, peace refused to come. Every knock at the door sent her heart racing. Every unfamiliar number made her hands tremble. When her phone rang that evening, she nearly dropped it. It was Amaka, Scarlett answered in a whisper. Amaka. Her cousin's voice was low and urgent. Scarlett, listen to me. You have to move again. What? Why? It's Christian, Amaka breathed. He's in Abuja. He's already here. Scarlett's stomach dropped. Amaka continued in a rush. He's hired more investigators. I overheard him telling Kenji he traced your last location to Maidama. Now they know you're in Asokoro. Scarlett's knees buckled. She sank to the sofa. No, you have to leave, tonight. Tears pricked Scarlett's eyes. She had been running for days, changing apartments, using burner phones, paying cash. But it wasn't enough. Not against Christian Khalifa. Because Christian wasn't some careless Lagos playboy. He was a man who never lost. Not in business, not in life. Not when it came to the people he loved or the things he considered his. And Scarlett knew with a sinking certainty that Christian had already decided. She was his, and he would never let her go. Back at the SUV, Christian leaned forward in his seat, knuckles white. Faster, he told the driver. I want every street in Asokoro watched tonight. Kenji's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and frowned. Report from Maitama, he said. She was seen leaving with a small bag 2 hours ago. Christian's jaw tightened. She's running again. Kenji nodded grimly. We're closing the net. Christian leaned back, chest heaving. He could still hear her voice from that night they met, soft, unsure. You don't need someone like me, Mr. Khalifa. I'm not one of those women. She hadn't been. That's what had ruined him. That's what had made him fall. And now, she had broken him in a way Daisy never had. Because Scarlett wasn't just another woman. She was his future, his peace, his everything. And if she thought she could vanish into Abuja, into the shadows of this city, she was wrong. He would find her. And when he did, no force on earth would pull her away again. As the SUV turned a corner, Christian's phone buzzed. Another update. Target moving. Gray Honda. West side of Asokoro. Unknown destination. Christian's heart pounded. She's on the move, Kenji confirmed. Christian's voice was cold as steel. Follow her. Don't lose her. Back in her car, Scarlett gripped the steering wheel, tears clouding her vision. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't even know who she was running from anymore, Christian, the man she loved, or Christian, the man she feared. All she knew was one thing. If he found her now, if he looked into her eyes, she wouldn't be able to lie. She wouldn't be able to resist. And that terrified her most of all. When he found her, Scarlett gripped the wheel tighter as her heart pounded violently in her chest. The streets of Asokoro blurred past in streaks of headlights. She had no plan, no destination. All she knew was that she couldn't stop, not now, not when Christian was this close. But it was too late. She didn't notice the black SUV trailing her until it cut across the next junction, blocking her path. Tires screeched. Her car skidded to a halt. Before she could react, the door yanked open. Tall, powerful, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, eyes burning with a fire she had never seen before. Christian. She froze. For one breathless second, neither of them moved. The world around them seemed to fade, just the two of them caught in the middle of the night. Then Christian's voice, low and shaking. Get out. Her body refused to obey, trembling, breath shallow. He reached in, not rough, but firm, and took her hand, pulling her gently from the seat. Her legs barely supported her. Without a word, Christian guided her toward his waiting SUV. The door opened. He helped her in both of them, sliding into the back seat. The driver said nothing, simply pulling away from the curb. The silence in the car was deafening. The hum of Abuja's night streets drifted around them, but inside, only the sound of their breath. Scarlett sat curled against the door, eyes shimmering with tears. Christian leaned forward, forearms on his knees, fingers laced, jaw tight. For long moments, he couldn't even look at her. Finally, voice low, hoarse. Why? Scarlett's throat closed. She swallowed hard. I saw you, she whispered, at the polo club, with Daisy. Christian flinched. She showed up uninvited. Scarlett shook her head. I saw the way you looked at her. Her voice broke. You never looked at me like that. Christian let out a sharp, pained breath. That's not true. He turned then, eyes locking on hers. And for the first time she saw it. The hurt, the deep, aching hurt in him. I wasn't choosing her, he rasped. Scarlett, she's my past, a mistake that almost ruined me. He ran a trembling hand over his face. You're the first thing I ever wanted. The only thing I've ever loved without fear. Scarlett's tears fell freely. I couldn't marry a man who still loves someone else. Christian's face twisted, broken. You think I don't love you? His voice cracked. You think this is about Daisy? A ragged breath. I spent years building walls after her betrayal. Years telling myself love wasn't worth the risk. His gaze dropped. And then you walked into my life? He looked up again, voice shaking. Calm, strong, beautiful. Every man's dream. And for the first time, I knew what I wanted. Scarlett's breath hitched. He leaned back, head against the seat, eyes closing, too tired to hide the truth anymore. I designed that ring for you, he whispered, because I wanted forever. A pause. And when I found out you were gone, when I saw that ring on Daisy's hand, his throat worked. A tear slipped down his cheek, silent, unbidden. I broke. Scarlett covered her mouth, sobbing softly. I thought I was freeing you, she whispered. Christian opened his eyes, raw with pain. Freeing me? His voice was barely audible. Scarlett, losing you is the only thing I can't survive. She reached for him, then her hand trembling but stopped halfway. Christian saw it. His heart ached. Slowly he took her hand, threading their fingers together. The SUV sped through the dark roads toward the airport. Neither of them spoke again. There was too much between them. Too much left unsaid. By the time they reached the private terminal, Christian helped her out gently, protectively guiding her onto the plane. As they took their seats in the cabin, the distance between them was both physical and painfully emotional. But for now, one thing was certain. He had found her, and he would never let her go again. 2 days to the wedding. Back in Lagos, the city pulsed with its usual restless energy, glittering lights, crowded streets, endless noise. But inside the penthouse on Banana Island, an unbearable silence lingered. Scarlett sat alone on the edge of the massive bed, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. 2 days. 2 days to the wedding that had once felt like the beginning of forever. Now, it felt like something fragile, something broken. Christian hadn't said a word to her since they landed. He had escorted her home quietly, mechanically, and disappeared into his study. No touch, no glance, no warmth. Scarlett could barely stand it. Her heart was breaking all over again, not because of anger, but because of the terrible, gnawing guilt inside her. He had given her everything. His heart, his trust, his world. And she had run without asking, without trusting him in return. Now Christian drifted through the penthouse like a ghost. Withdrawn, cold. Every look in his eyes screamed one thing, hurt. And deep down, Scarlett knew why. He had told me about Daisy from the beginning, she thought bitterly. He had never hidden what happened. He had shared it all, the betrayal, the pain, the way she had destroyed him. He had let Scarlett see the deepest, rawest part of him. And still she had doubted him. Why would he choose someone who broke him over the woman who helped mend his shattered heart? Why hadn't I trusted him enough to ask? Scarlett wiped her tears, her mind replaying every moment. How he had always made her feel cherished, not just wanted, but needed. How he had opened up to her in ways no one else had. How he had designed the ring himself, every detail chosen with love. And she had broken that. With fear, with doubt. Now the ache in her chest was unbearable. She missed him. Not just his touch, but the man who would pull her into his arms after long days, who would rest his chin on her shoulder and murmur, "You are my peace, Scarlett." But now, she could barely get a word from him. Earlier that afternoon, she had tried. She'd found him sitting alone on the terrace, staring at the city lights. "Christian," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please, talk to me." But he hadn't looked at her, just murmured, "Not now," and walked away. Scarlett sat on the bed, her heart twisting. This couldn't go on. She wasn't going to marry a man who wouldn't speak to her, who wouldn't even touch her. We can't leave this unsaid, she thought, fist clenching. Because if they did, it would poison everything they had fought for, everything they had dreamed of. With tears streaking her cheeks, Scarlett rose. 2 days. 2 days to the wedding. And she wasn't losing him to silence. Not again. Tonight she would go to him. And this time, no matter how hard it was, she would make him listen. Because what they had was worth fighting for. Nothing left unsaid. The clock on the bedroom wall ticked softly in the still night. Scarlett paced the room, heart racing. Enough was enough. 2 days to the wedding, and Christian hadn't touched her, hadn't even looked at her properly since they returned. And she couldn't bear it anymore. Not this silence. Not this ache. Not after everything they had been through. She straightened her shoulders, wiped her tears, and walked out. Her bare feet carried her through the quiet penthouse, the marble floors cool beneath her skin. She knew where he'd be. The study door was slightly ajar. Inside, Christian sat behind his desk, a glass of whiskey untouched before him. The soft city lights spilled in from the window, casting sharp lines across his face. His eyes were hollow, his shoulders heavy. Scarlett pushed the door open and stepped inside. He didn't look up. But she wasn't leaving. Not this time. Christian. Her voice was soft but steady. He said nothing. Scarlett moved closer, standing across from him. Her hands trembled, but her gaze never wavered. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "This silence between us, it's killing me." Still, he didn't speak. She swallowed hard. "I know what I did. I know I hurt you." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was wrong. So wrong." Finally, Christian looked up, and the pain in his eyes shattered her. "I gave you everything," he said quietly, "and you left." Scarlett's heart cracked. "I know," she whispered. "I was afraid. I thought you would choose her over me." Her voice broke. "I didn't trust you, and I hate myself for it." Christian's jaw tightened. His voice rough. "You could have asked me." A breath. "You could have come to me, the man who told you everything. The man who loved you." Scarlett's tears streamed freely now. "I know," she sobbed, "and I was wrong. I ruined something precious." She took a trembling step forward. "I miss you," she whispered. "Not just the man I'm marrying, but you, the man who made me believe in love again." Her voice shook with desperation. "I can't marry you like this, with this between us." She moved around the desk, standing before him. He looked up, breathing hard, so much pain in his gaze, it nearly broke her. Scarlett reached for his hands, clasping them in hers. Her voice was fierce, raw. "We are not leaving anything unsaid." A pause. "And I am not leaving this room until you know I love you, Christian Khalifa." A breath. "And I will spend the rest of my life making up for what I did, if you'll let me." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then slowly, like a man fighting every ounce of pride, Christian rose from the chair. "Oh!" His breath was ragged. His eyes shimmered. Scarlett's heart pounded as he reached for her, cupping her face between trembling hands. "I almost lost you," he whispered, voice breaking. A tear slid down his cheek. "And it nearly killed me." Scarlett pressed her lips to his palm, her tears wetting his skin. "You will never lose me again." Then, like a dam breaking, Christian crushed her to him. Their lips met in a kiss that was wild, desperate, full of everything they hadn't said. They stumbled together toward the bed, shedding the last barriers between them. That night, their love was not rushed or reckless. It was slow, deep, acclaiming. Christian's hands moved reverently over her skin, as though memorizing her, like a man touching his salvation. Scarlett arched beneath him, gasping his name again and again. "Just touch me," she whined, arching impatiently against his hand. He couldn't make either of them wait any longer. Slowly, he brought his middle finger down and slid it gently over her folds. Scarlett threw her head back. "God, yes, keep going." He did it again, this time his fingertips slipping between and gathering her wetness. He parted her with 2 fingers and found her clit, rubbing it in small circles. She cried out against his lips and was lost. The taste of her, the smell of her, the feel of her so close against him, skin to skin. He pushed her leg aside and sank inside her. She groaned and arched, forcing him to speed up to a faster pace. His fingers clenched over her thigh and he moved harder, deeper, shafting her in long, fast strokes. Delicious. She slid her hands down over his back, slick with sweat, and grasped his pumping buttocks. He pressed his mouth against her neck and kissed her, his tongue working over her sensitive skin. "Fuck," he mumbled. Every touch, every kiss spoke of what they had almost lost, and what they would never take for granted again. They made love until the first light of dawn touched the windows, until nothing remained between them but breathless whispers and tangled limbs. And in the quiet after, wrapped in his arms, Scarlett finally understood. This man had loved her completely. And now she would fight with everything in her to love him the same way. The world is watching. The morning light filtered softly through the sheer curtains of the penthouse bedroom. Scarlett stirred first, her body wrapped in warmth, her head resting on Christian's bare chest. His arm held her close, strong and protective, as though even in sleep he couldn't bear to let her go. For a long moment she lay there listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. How close they had come to losing this, to losing each other. She pressed a soft kiss to his chest and felt him stir. Christian's voice, rough with sleep, whispered, "You're still here." Scarlett lifted her head and met his gaze. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered back. And for the first time in days, a faint smile touched his lips. He brushed a lock of hair from her face, fingers lingering. "Good," he murmured, "because if you run again, I'll come for you." She gave a tearful laugh, leaning in to kiss him again. But their moment of peace was fleeting. By midday, the penthouse buzzed with activity. Phones rang. Emails pinged. The city outside and the entire Lagos social elite were in a frenzy. The Khalifa Okonwa wedding was the event of the year. And the news of Scarlett's brief disappearance had somehow leaked. Headlines flooded social media. Runaway bride, Khalifa wedding. In question, Scarlett Okonwa, seen in Abuja days before ceremony. Christian Khalifa, silent on rumors. Scarlett sat on the living room sofa, scrolling through the endless feed of gossip. Her stomach twisted. Christian entered then, phone in hand. His face was unreadable, the cold, composed mask of the billionaire CEO. But when he looked at her, his gaze softened. "Don't read that trash," he said quietly. "None of it matters." Scarlett set the phone down, biting her lip. "I didn't mean to cause this," she whispered. Everything spiraled." Christian walked over and sat beside her. Taking her hand, he laced their fingers together. His voice was calm but resolute. "The only thing that matters is us." Scarlett's heart swelled with love and gratitude. But beneath it all, a sliver of fear remained. Because tomorrow was the wedding. And though they had mended what was broken between them, the city, the world would be watching. And not everyone would wish them well. Later that evening, as Scarlett prepared for bed, she stood at the window gazing out over Lagos. Christian approached quietly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You're thinking too much," he murmured against her hair. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "I'm just nervous." Christian cupped her face gently. "There's nothing to fear anymore," he said softly. "Tomorrow you become my wife." Scarlett's eyes shimmered. "And you my husband." He leaned down, kissed her tenderly. And though the world beyond those walls buzzed with gossip and doubt, inside that moment they were untouchable, together, and ready to face whatever came next. Wedding morning. The first rays of dawn bathed Banana Island in a golden glow. In the Khalifa penthouse, everything buzzed with quiet purpose florists, event planners, stylists moving gracefully through the halls. It was the morning of the wedding. Scarlett stood in front of her bedroom mirror, her silk robe cinched at the waist, her heart pounding. She barely recognized the woman in the reflection. There was no more running, no more hiding. Today she would become Mrs. Christian Khalifa. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Amaka peeked in, her smile warm. "Good morning, Madam Bride." Scarlett gave a shaky laugh. "I'm not sure my heart can take much more." Amaka crossed the room, squeezing her hands. "You're ready," she said softly. "You love him, and he loves you." Scarlett nodded, eyes misting. Downstairs, Christian stood in his private dressing room, buttoning the crisp white shirt beneath his bespoke black tuxedo. Kenji stood nearby, handing him the cufflinks. Christian's jaw was tight, his expression controlled, but beneath the surface, his emotions churned. He had waited years for this day, and nearly lost it. "Sir," Kenji said quietly, "everything is ready at the Grand Orchid Media is already setting up. The city's watching." Christian met his gaze in the mirror. "I don't care who's watching," he said calmly. "All I care about is her." He fastened the final button and picked up the small velvet box, not the ring, but something else. A new gift. One only Scarlett would understand. By late morning, the black Bentley pulled into the circular drive. Scarlett stepped out in a breathtaking custom gown, delicate ivory lace over silk, the train cascading behind her. A cathedral-length veil framed her soft curls. The cameras clicked wildly as she entered the venue. But her eyes saw only one thing: Christian. He stood at the altar, tall, composed, devastating in his black tuxedo. But when their eyes met across the aisle when he saw her, the mask slipped. His eyes shimmered with raw emotion. Scarlett's breath caught. This was it. No fear, no doubt. As her father walked her forward, Christian stepped to meet her. Taking her hands, he whispered, "You're the only thing I want." Scarlett's voice trembled. "And you're the only man I will ever love." As the music swelled, the world around them faded. There were no cameras, no gossip, no shadows of the past. Just the two of them, standing in the light, ready to begin forever. The wedding night. The wedding had been a dream. The vows spoken beneath an arch of white roses. The cheers of friends and family as Christian kissed his new wife. The glittering reception where the city's elite toasted their love. But now, finally, the world had fallen away. Scarlett stood at the balcony of their honeymoon suite at the Lagos Continental, the city lights twinkling far below. The soft evening breeze brushed her bare shoulders, her wedding gown now replaced with a delicate silk slip that clung to every curve. Behind her, the door clicked shut. She didn't need to turn. She could feel him, the heat of his gaze, the quiet power in his presence. Christian's deep voice rumbled low. "I've waited long enough, Mrs. Khalifa." Scarlett turned slowly, her heart racing. And there he was, her husband. No longer the distant billionaire, no longer the man shattered by betrayal, but hers, entirely hers. Christian crossed the room in a few strides. He stopped in front of her, one hand cupping her cheek, the other trailing slowly down her bare arm. His voice was rough with emotion. "You're mine now," he whispered, "and I'll spend every day proving you are loved." Scarlett's breath caught. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered back. Tears shimmered in her eyes. "I was afraid, but not anymore." Christian leaned in, capturing her mouth in a kiss that stole the breath from her lungs, deep, slow, claiming. There was no rush, no urgency, just two lovers who had almost lost everything, finding their way back. He lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the bed. Their mouths never parted. And when he laid her down, when he began to undress her with reverent hands, Scarlett trembled, not with fear, but with longing. The night unfolded in slow, mind-blowing waves of passion. Christian worshipped every inch of her with his mouth, his hands, his body. He moved inside her with aching tenderness, each thrust deep and deliberate, as though imprinting his love into her very soul. Scarlett cried out his name again and again, her nails gripping his back. Every kiss, every touch, every breath was a vow, one that words could never speak. When they finally collapsed in each other's arms, bodies slick with sweat, hearts racing, there was no distance between them. No walls, no more barriers. Christian cradled her close, his voice a soft murmur against her hair. "You are my everything, Scarlett." And as Scarlett pressed her lips to his chest, she whispered back, "You always were." Together, husband and wife, they drifted into sleep. And for the first time in a long, turbulent journey, peace surrounded them. Forever begins. Weeks had passed since the wedding, and their life had settled into a quiet, blissful rhythm. Scarlett stood in the sun-drenched kitchen of their new mansion in Ikoyi, an elegant, sprawling home that Christian had chosen for them after returning from their honeymoon in Santorini. She stirred a pot of jasmine tea, humming softly to herself. Her gaze drifted toward the grand staircase, waiting, listening. And then she heard it, the deep, familiar voice of her husband. "Where is my wife?" Christian called from upstairs, amusement lacing his tone. Scarlett smiled, her heart fluttering. A moment later, he appeared dressed in a casual linen shirt and slacks, barefoot, impossibly handsome. Christian crossed the room and slid his arms around her waist from behind. He pressed a slow kiss to her neck. "Good morning, Mrs. Khalifa." Scarlett leaned back into him, her smile widening. "Good morning, husband." They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other, savoring the peace they had fought so hard for. The wounds from the past had healed. The fears, the doubts, gone. Christian had proven every single day since that night that his love for her was unwavering. And Scarlett had opened her heart fully, trusting him, trusting them. Now they lived not as two people bound by society's gaze, but as soulmates, partners, lovers. Later that morning, they strolled through their private gardens, fingers entwined. Christian glanced at her, his eyes full of warmth. "I'm thinking of taking some time off," he said softly. "Less boardroom, more us." Scarlett's heart swelled. "I'd like that," she whispered. He stopped, turning to face her fully. "For so long, I thought I didn't deserve this," he murmured. "Didn't deserve you." He cupped her face tenderly. "But now, I'll never take it for granted again." Scarlett rose on her toes, brushing her lips against his. "And I'll never let fear steal what we have again." As the sun bathed them in light, Christian pulled her close. His voice was a soft vow. "Forever, Scarlett." And in that moment in his arms, in the warmth of their love, she knew. Forever had only just begun. If you enjoyed this story of love, heartbreak, and redemption, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who loves a good romance. More beautiful stories are coming your way. See you in the next one. What lesson did you take away from this dramatic tale? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.